Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is a brand new show, and I want to introduce you to a very special co-host of the show, someone who is going to be taking over and running with this show in not too long. Please meet Jenny Tarakango, and she is going to explain why we are starting this series.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Tarakango. I am so happy to jump into this journey. It was sudden, but I have the mean behind it. This journey, we're starting this show just because to help all the people who are going through the same similar situation that I'm going through right now. My mom, she be in the hospital. She's losing all four of her limbs, and the journey is very, very bumpy. And we're here to help others. If we can help any kind of way, we're here to support. I'm here to share my journey, how it started, what's going on, and after the hospitalization.
And the main focus of this is to really join Jenny and her mom and her sisters on this journey to finding initiatives, finding innovation, finding out what the life hacks are for living limb different. And different people have different limb difference, and we are going to try as best as we can to try and accommodate everyone, as we go along. And I think because Jenny's mom is now without four peripherals, I think that it's going to be pretty likely that we'll be able to find something for everyone along the way to be able to not only help her mom, but also help so many others. And our very first resource that we have found, which has been integral in helping me with the Weight of My Heart, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that helps patients with a circulation issue known as peripheral artery disease, which could lead to amputation, and in fact, in many cases has led to amputation. No Limits, it's clothing for people who have prosthetics. And one of the biggest issues that we found when patients got their prosthetics is they would start cutting their pants in order to accommodate the prosthetic, or they would just wear shorts. And in the winter, that's a lot harder to just wear shorts. And so when I found No Limits, it was actually on Shark Tank. I thought, oh my gosh, I have to get these for my patients. And so I think that when your mom, Jenny, gets those prosthetics, that's going to literally, No Limits is going to fill up your entire wardrobe. So should we bring in Erica Cole, the founder and CEO of No Limits? Hi, Erica.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Do you want to give us a little background on how you started, why you started No Limits?
Absolutely. I am an amputee myself. I actually lost my left leg below the knee in 2018 very suddenly in a car accident. And so I had that very stark kind of before disability and after disability experience. Going through the recovery process, I got my first prosthetic. It took a while, and then suddenly I had this clothing challenge and I wasn't able to wear what everyone else was wearing. I was actually wearing like sweatpants that were 2 sizes too large for me because it was the only thing that fit over my prosthetic. And I think a lot of people don't realize, like, when you get that first prosthetic device, your limb, especially if you've lost your limb in trauma, there's a lot of swelling. So my limb around the calf area was like the size of my head. So like getting through that through a pair of pant legs was super challenging. Anyway, long story short, started altering clothes on a sewing machine. It turned into kind of a small business, and then we were brought in by Target Incubator in the summer of 2020. Eventually ended up on Shark Tank. Started working on clothes for people with disabilities, kind of across a variety of challenges, not just people with lower limb difference. But that's kind of how No Limits came to be. And we're a team now of people with disabilities, and it's a pretty exciting moment in time for us. And I'm really lucky to be able to work in this space. And so it's really nice to meet you, Jenny, and like whatever I can do to help in your mom's transition. I feel like the amputee community has been so like welcoming and sharing of resources, and that's something that we'd love to do for you too.
Thank you, Erica. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I met Kim, and Kim introduced me to all of you guys, because it's brand new for us and my family. And I don't know, how did you navigate? How did you navigate once you went out the rehab? What was your first initiative? What to do? Just I want to understand, because it's very traumatic and it's very new to us, and not knowing the community. No, no. How did you reach out to the community? How did you write a letter, or did you call? Just can you please walk me through that process, if possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky enough, I had a couple of friends that were amputees. And so when I lost my limb, I reached out to them first. But there are a couple of Facebook groups that are very welcoming, amputee Facebook groups. There's the Amputee Coalition, and they actually have people that are trained to come out. Even if someone's considering an amputation, there's someone that can come to the hospital or to your home that's been trained in advocacy in this space to help you navigate what life looks like, answer any of those questions, because it's hard, as some of these questions can only be answered by other amputees. It's just, so they have a really great peer support network. So I'd encourage you to start there if you haven't explored that already, and have someone come out. And I remember someone came out to the hospital and they actually took their prosthetic off, and they showed me how it worked before I was ready for a prosthetic. And I was like, oh, this is a lot less scary than it seemed at the time.
We have an app. It's the Peripheral Artery Disease app, and you can download it. And we do have a group that we have started for amputees related to PAD. And I'd invite both of you to be a part of it, and happy to let you all run with it and see where it goes, and provide whatever resources in a controlled, facilitated environment that we can do, because I think it's really, really important to make sure that everyone does have a community, whether they have Facebook or they don't have Facebook. So we just have provided this independent platform that allows people to go on in a private environment and be able to share and learn and grow. But I'm curious, Erica, when I went searching for clothing, I didn't see anything else out there. Did I search wrong? I mean, it speaks volumes that you were out there sewing. Was it that the clothing that was available, that was designed for people with prosthetics, was just not cool? Or was it what I found? I literally couldn't find anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. It being not cool was part of it. There were a couple options that were just really expensive, like $150 to $200 for a pair of pants. And like, that wasn't doable for me at the time. And I also think there have been kind of efforts in the adaptive space that have been very focused on caretakers, which is great. We love caretakers. We were started to take a different approach of like, I don't need a full-time caretaker. I just need to be able to dress a little bit more independently on the day-to-day. So we found this kind of sweet spot in the middle where people weren't thinking about people with disabilities who still have a level of independence, and like, how can we increase that level of independence even if someone does have a caretaker through accessible clothing, because it's such, it's an item that you're interacting with every day, at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and a lot of times in the middle too, because as you get fit for prosthetics, you need to make adjustments to that prosthetic throughout the day. So you're interacting with this item of clothing multiple times throughout the day. And there's also nothing specifically for amputees either. There was some adaptive stuff that was for maybe people with limited dexterity, or and it was very looked like it was designed for someone in a senior home, which is nothing wrong with that. But I was 23 years old, it's not what I wanted to be wearing on a daily basis.
That's actually a cool idea. It's in your home. Okay, that's a cool idea. My other question, did you start sewing yourself? Did you taught yourself how to sew, or you learned? What was the frustration you had prior doing that?
Yeah, so actually I had been sewing since I was about 12 years old. So I was already had the construction skills to put myself through college. I actually did costume design for people who wanted to go to Renaissance festivals or Comic Cons. So I was like making custom garments already. So it's pretty natural for me to go to the sewing machine, but I had no business experience whatsoever. So that was kind of the learning curve that I faced starting No Limits.
Okay.
How did you end up on Shark Tank, and at
Exactly.
what point in your journey did you end up on
We
Shark
want to
Tank?
know.
Well, so there got to be a point where I was doing a lot of alterations on the sewing machine. And for amputees, I was doing kind of the same thing over and over again. I was like, okay, it would really be easier for people if they could go to a website, pick out a pair of pants that's just designed for amputees. So I was trying to enter like pitch competitions and things for the first production run of our pants for amputees. I ended up launching a Kickstarter to try to pre-sell some of those pants and pay for that production run. And a Shark Tank producer saw me on Kickstarter and reached out, and they were like, have you ever considered being on Shark Tank? And I was like, haha, that's a good one, you know? And then like 6 months later, there I was flying out to LA to film Shark Tank. So that was pretty wild.
That's
Can you
amazing.
describe that process?
I know.
When that was right. And in 2018, your life dramatically changed. And you probably thought, wow, no hope, no purpose. What am I going to do? And then suddenly everything seems to be falling into place for you.
In retrospect, it seems like it was a very sudden thing, but it was a slow process. I mean, it was a couple of years after my amputation. It was a lot of paperwork to get on Shark Tank, I won't lie. And the whole time they're telling you like, there's no guarantee that you're going to film. There's no guarantee you'll even get to see the sharks. You just get a plane ticket and you've done all this preparation. And then you go out and film. And we were lucky enough to get our filming slot, lucky enough to get a deal, and then lucky enough to air. So it was just like the odds of that happening seemed, you know, infinitesimally small. And now it's still surreal. Like every once in a while, I'll look at my inbox and I'll get like an inbound email from Mark Cuban. I just like, my heart stops for a moment every time. I'm like, all right, everybody drop everything. Need to respond to this email from Mark Cuban. It's still just wild. And Emma Greed is our other shark. She has been like so beyond helpful. She's absolutely my hero in kind of the fashion space, and also just freaking badass CEO. She's who I want to be when I grow up. So it's really a dream come true to get to work with them.
You say that your heart stops, you know, when Mark Cuban, do you deal mostly with him or do you deal with his team? And same with Emma. Sounds like you deal with her a lot more.
So I work differently with Mark than I do with Emma. I send regular updates. Mark responds to every single update, and he'll have comments, he'll send introductions, he'll have advice and questions. And I think sometimes he tries to like, poke and like really make sure I'm thinking through every decision that we're making. And I so appreciate that and it's like super nerve-wracking, but he's trying to make sure that I'm thinking about all these different angles, right? And he's got visibility into so many different startups too. He's really great at kind of showing these macro trends and what's happening in the space. Emma Emma Greed is the co-founder of Good American with Khloe Kardashian. And so she has built this just phenomenal denim brand, which is where we started. We started in denim because that was overwhelmingly the thing that people wanted when we were asking, you know, what items of clothing do you wish you could wear still? And it was jeans were like number one answer, hands down. So she's built this phenomenal denim business, and she has all of the sourcing and construction and fashion world knowledge. And she's been just so generous with giving feedback on that. It was totally a game changer to have her involved. And so we meet on more topics like that, getting items through production. What do our line plans look like? What is our design and development process? And and also like what's cute and in fashion, and how do you run an e-com business, because that's very different too than other startups. So yeah, it was really dream team getting the both of them together.
It looks like a dream team because you have a business perspective and you have a designer perspective of it. So combined together, it makes it like that's a blessing. I would say that's a blessing.
Oh, absolutely.
What most surprised you about the entire process throughout Shark Tank?
I think, well, one thing that I did not anticipate is like you're in the tank, you're pitching, and all of the sharks are kind of talking at once. And they do a really good job in editing of making it not seem that way, because each shark has an individual mic. So it looks very organized when you watch it afterwards. And they also allow up to like 2 hours to film, and you only get, only about 5 minutes of that air. But they're all talking over each other. And I was just there like trying to decide whose question am I going to ask, and who do I want to deal with? I'll answer their questions first. What questions do I have really good answers for? I'll answer those. So I look good. And it was like, just kind of in moment strategy, super overwhelming. But
what is your current product line and how is it evolving?
Yeah, so we just launched our new unlimited pant, and it's for amputees, but also anybody with a lower limb difference. So we're finding that people with lymphedema were using our pants, people with leg or knee braces or AFOs. So we just released those like a couple weeks ago, and that's going really well. We're also releasing a line of wheelchair specific pants next week, which I'm super excited about. It took like a year to develop these, but everything about them is designed to be more comfortable and more functional in the seated position. And then this summer we are launching a limited dexterity collection. So we have a lot of like one-handed zippers, magnetic closures and things like that, and also a sensory friendly collection. So that's for anybody with sensory processing disorders, which are commonly found in people with autism or ADHD, but it can also exist on its own. So those are kind of our 4 main categories here in 2023 that we're really excited about.
Take us to the boardroom when you're making those decisions on your product roadmap, because I'm sure that Jenny's also thinking the same thing. How in the world do you decide what's next, right?
That's
there's
exactly.
so many directions you could go, so many different verticals, so many different products. I'm sure you have a list a mile long of everything that you want to create, but you can't do it all at once.
Yeah, absolutely. Primarily, it comes from the number one thing we look at is what are our customers looking for from us? So the great thing about Shark Tank is suddenly we had all this visibility. We had, I mean, not an exaggeration, thousands of emails, comments, messages, DMs from people who are like, have you thought about developing this? Have you thought about developing this? And so we really took all of those and we were like, what are the most commonly requested things? That's number one. Number two is like where we think we can have the most impact in terms of what is the population size of these different sub-segments of the disabled population. And how can we help the most people with these products? And then number three is like, what's not out there? And so, I mean, it's hard every day. My favorite, like the thing I'm most excited for changes, but sensory friendly, we're finding was like super ignored in the fashion space and in the disability space, especially in adults. There were sensory friendly products for kids, but there weren't sensory friendly products for adults. And like people don't grow out of sensory processing disorder like was previously thought. So anyway, so all of those things kind of come together in our kind of high level strategy, along with how quickly can we get some things to market. Like our development process is way longer than a traditional clothing brand because a lot of this stuff hasn't been done before. So that kind of determines the order of things too. Some things move faster than others.
So my other question would be, because we're talking about more likely for the lower limb, do you have any roadmap or any idea when it comes to the upper limbs? Do you have anything? cooking on the process just because of my mom. She lost all four, so we had to think about how we are redoing all her wardrobe because just to make her comfortable.
Absolutely. We have quite a few things coming out. So Bethany is one of our designers. She is a bilateral upper limb amputee. So she's missing both arms below the elbow. She's also an occupational therapist. So she like designs from both of those perspectives.
Yes.
It's really incredible. Yes,
That's
she's like
amazing.
she is. And so she's been like really driving this, we call it the limited dexterity collection, because it's not necessarily only for people who have had upper limb amputations, but who maybe have lost the motor control in their hands from Parkinson's, arthritis, or even paralysis of one or both arms. And so we've got some really cool stuff coming out. We've got some shirts that just have a magnetic placket up the front. So you put the shirt on and it closes by itself. We've got some coats that we're working on that have both that magnetic feature. And then I'm fidgeting right now with, this is a one-handed zipper. So the bottom of the zipper actually just magnets together. You don't have to like thread it through or anything. It just clicks together like that, and then you zip it. We're putting a really like big loop on here, so even if you don't have hands at all, you just hook an arm through here and it zips up. We've got some limited dexterity pants that we're working on that have large dressing loops, so instead of like, if you think about the grip strength to pull up a pair of pants, you can just hook your arms through and use that, we call them like gross motor movements versus fine motor movements to dress. And they also don't, we're just like, we don't need a button fly or a zipper. Those are too difficult to use. So they're just a pull on feature pant. Did I miss anything? Oh, and then we were finding that there's kind of, we were talking about overlaps, right? Because your mom has upper limb difference and lower limb difference. And some people have these disabilities overlap and symptoms and needs overlap. So we developed this really cool blouse for not only people with, originally it was a sensory processing disorder garment. We were like, women who have sensory processing disorder, bras are like the number one thing. So we're like, okay, let's make a shirt that you don't have to wear a bra with. Let's just take the bra out of the equation. And then Bethany was like, wait, this is actually a really great limited dexterity bra, because people who have limited dexterity in their hands or upper limb amputees, bras are also really difficult for them. So by taking the bra out of it, it's a limited dexterity garment, and it's a sensory processing, sensory friendly garment.
Are you surprised that something like this has not been developed already?
I am, and I'm not. I am surprised that like, this is a huge market opportunity. Like Vogue Business highlighted this as being worth nearly $400 billion globally by 2026. Like, it is not a tiny market by any means, but I don't think people really know that. So that's one reason it doesn't super surprise me. The other reason it doesn't super surprise me is they are enormously long development timelines. And my team has just been doing a phenomenal job at working through those. But you need to involve a lot of people in this development process, because we're involving people who experience disability. We're also involving healthcare providers like occupational and physical therapists, because we want to make sure we're doing the right thing and the person with a disability feels good. But we also want to make sure we're not doing any harm, and we're not, like for wheelchair users, for example, if you have a seam in the wrong place on the back of a wheelchair garment, that can be a pressure sore in someone who's paralyzed.
Right.
So we need to take both of those perspectives into place. Also, traditionally, clothing is designed on the standing body since clothing has existed. Like, we are working on developing our own forms of the seated body for our fit standards, because it hasn't been done in the seated position before. So the development cycles are really long. It's really hard for a large brand to come in and rework all their development timelines because they're so much longer than like making next season's color of jeans, for example. And like that's something that's difficult for us too, but we've built that in from the foundation up. So that is the expectation. And we've built around that, but it's hard for a non-adaptive brand to go back to a much slower development process once they're an existing clothing brand.
It takes a long time before the prosthetics even come into play. And there's a certain timeline that I would imagine that your products, while they have bandages on the arms, that they can still get dressed by themselves because of the design of them, even without the prosthetic. Number one. Number two is with the pants that you have, that they could be easily accessible for people that wound care specialists that are coming in, home wound care specialists coming in and taking care, you know, of the patient. They're able to just open it and just treat the wound right then and there versus having to take the pants off and or wear shorts if it's cold and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I could almost imagine that you would have some sort of transitions, like you have transition lenses, things like that. You have transitions, like they could be transition pants that could actually just seal below, but open up and make it so that the wound care specialist can access.
Yes, for sure. One thing we're working on, not to give away too many, because this is a little bit down the road, but one thing we're working on that I'm super excited about in like regards to that transition is like, how do we make, we're working on some outerwear. Outerwear is another like category that's just been historically really difficult for people with disabilities for a lot of different reasons. But we're working on a coat that has like different adjustable arm sleeve lengths. So if you have below elbow amputee, for example, that cuff is hitting at the right spot versus if you're an above elbow amputee, that cuff is at the right spot and you don't have like a sleeve dangling, but it's still warm. So we're working on some stuff like that. So absolutely what you're saying is like thinking about all those different stages that someone's going through a recovery process.
Yeah, if it's not too much asking, what is the time frame to develop, like you said, the upper limbs? You thinking about having the line for them as well? What is the time process? I'm not just to know.
Yeah, so well, I guess I'll give you an example of our wheelchair pants. Our wheelchair pants took 1.5 years to develop.
Okay.
The limited dexterity things, like some of the shirts that have a magnetic placket, those are more like 8 months from kind of conception to product. But like when it's something super new that hasn't been done before, like this coat with adjustable sleeve lengths, like that's likely another year before that'll be able to come out. So it's depends on what it is. And then production timelines are really long too. And so another thing is like we built this business in the middle of a supply chain crisis, which is like not the easiest time to start a clothing brand. Yeah. So that's impacting some of these timelines also is just another factor. But luckily, I think, I don't knock on wood, we're looking at the tail end of that.
Well, the question is, since you have built all these models and framework for all this new type of clothing, you have seen yourself providing those models and such to allow orders to design upon encouraging others to design the limb difference people?
Absolutely. The thing that I love about this space, adaptive fashion, the industry is like way more collaborative than the traditional fashion industry is.
Right.
Traditional fashion is like very cutthroat, but I probably meet with 2 to 3 other adaptive brands like on a weekly basis, and we're all sharing ideas because it's such an underserved market. There's room for a lot of people in it, so it's not competitive like other industries would be.
Okay.
Do you ever see yourself having some sort of runway show, or have you had a runway show? Do you ever see yourself getting to go to New York and having that space in some of the biggest shows of the year?
We actually last September were in the Runway of Dreams show in New York Fashion Week. And so that was a show, every single model had a disability. It was
Okay.
such a cool moment. And it was like this call to action for more brands to be involved in the adaptive space. So we had 6 models in that show. And it was, I mean, like there was not a dry eye in the house
Oh.
just watching the impact that, you know, a simple piece of adaptive clothing can have on someone's life and confidence. It was really cool.
You know, it's interesting. Jenny brought up a good point about you guys, since you are those, we would consider you really pioneers in this space, and you're really at the forefront developing the tools, the adaptive tools, right? That all brands could potentially use. Your zipper concept, you could pretty much sell the zipper concept to and license it to major brands to use in all of their designer clothing. You can say, hey, you came up with this particular type of design for this year. We're going to have an adaptive brand that, or an adapted version of it, that is going to have this zipper, which came from No LIMBits.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. We have one of those collaborations in progress right now. I can't tell you who it's with, but like there are going to be some super cool things happening in this space exactly like that.
Yeah. Because while we're talking about this, my thought exactly where I know you're creating like a streetwear, just comfortable outfit, but think about if let's say my mom, she's live at a party, trying to go to a party. So it was transitional from just having those cool adaptable stuff that she wear during the day, but going to the party become hard because it's not there. There's not like a nice dress, like a gown to go to party, because I know for a fact that's one of the things she'll be like, oh, can I wear my dresses with my legs? I said, Mom, you can wear everything. She'll sit there just thinking about it. So that's cool. That's cool if we can have both sides, like a streetwear, just regular outfit, and to have like a party outfit or just events. So we can have like a diversities of outfit. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That, you know, big department stores that offer still, I don't know how long this is going to last, but high-end department stores offer a seamstress that come in and do that. Gosh, it would be amazing to have just a little tag on all the different pieces that could be adaptive, that could have No LIMBits, that could be incorporated by that seamstress right then and there inside that department store.
That's super cool. I love that. Yeah. And we're seeing a trend of more schools starting to, and like design schools starting to offer adaptive clothing classes. Like we're working with a university in Missouri now, kind of at this forefront of design technology and adaptive clothing. And that's really where the impact is maximized. But exactly, it's seamstresses and tailors and designers and everybody can really benefit from having this adaptive training, and we're starting to see that trajectory.
What keeps you awake at night?
Oh man.
I know.
Really, supply chain is like kind of scary. Yeah, like are the products going to arrive in time? The other thing that we try to do too, which is, it's been difficult as a small brand, and so we've been very intentional about it, is the fashion industry is pretty terrible as a whole as far as sustainability and ethical sourcing and manufacturing. And so we put a lot of time into our products being sustainably and ethically manufactured. And so I think just like it's unethical, not sustainable manufacturing is so rampant that I'm like, are we going to be able to find vendors for all of these products that we have and have stuff come in time and have it all be produced in the way that it needs to be produced? It's a challenge in fashion as a whole, and especially difficult for a small brand to navigate. So it's, I think that's what keeps me up at night, is just not contributing to that problem.
Well, we appreciate you so much for all your contribution to helping people. Any final thoughts do you have?
I would love to send some clothes to your mom.
Sure.
is one thought. And then if there's anything that I can help with too in her recovery process. I guess one other thing to kind of note, I always try to spread the word about, I don't have a traditional prosthetic. I have an osseo integrated prosthetic.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've had the chance to look into that technology yet, but it's been pretty life-changing for me. So my prosthetic is directly implanted into my bone versus having a traditional socket now. So it's a technology to look into, and it's starting to be more common in the US. So I try to spread that word to new amputees also, in that I spent about 2 years trying to make a socket work, and it just was not working for me. But it's definitely something to look into.
I have to look into that. It's go connected directly to your bone. Due to her being diabetic, I don't know how it's gonna work. I'll do my diligent research and find out. Ask her doctors, because one of the procedure that I asked about, it was a CMR, I believe. The nervous system, they can connect it to the prosthetic. And she was a candidate for, I just asked, she was a candidate for. I was so excited. She can still feel the legs and feel. So that one too, I'll bring it up to the doctor and just try to have an idea if it won't cause infection. I don't know. How did you find out about it?
Actually, on one of the Facebook groups that I had joined. So it's a reminder, I'll write it down. I'll connect you to that Facebook group.
Please.
And if you have any questions about it, they do it in Colorado is where I had it done. There are a couple other hospitals that are starting to do more of it now. It's I think it's going to kind of change the game for amputees. So
does it feel comfortable, or what is the challenge that you face with that?
I had a lot of skin grafting on my residual limb. So on a traditional prosthetic with the socket, I was just having so much skin breakdown that it was really painful for me to walk on a regular prosthetic. This one, because it's implanted into my bone, it doesn't matter that my skin around it is pretty damaged. And I have a better gait. It's way faster and easier to put on and off. And then I actually have it's not feeling like, you feel like the bottom of your foot, but it's called osseoperception. So because you're getting that feedback directly into the bone, I can feel when I step on something a weird way or something like that before I fall, versus like if I were on a traditional prosthetic, it would my balance was not as good. So a lot of advantages to it. If she's a candidate for it.
If she's a candidate for it. That's very, thank you very much. That's something I need to
absolutely.
Thank you very much, Erica. We appreciate you, and I thank you, Kim, for making this happen. I'm blessed. I am blessed because even though my mom, she's going through this, it looks more. Me and my siblings, we're going through this, and we take good sense. She doesn't even speak English, so we need to be there every step of the way, literally everything. Because we need to translate. That means 24/7, we need to be there with her. So we are going through this together. And having meetings like this, it's very helpful. And it's very, when it gives us, it gives me hope and it gives me joy. I can share with my siblings that we will know how to best support her by transmitting the messages like, look, we have found this, we found that. So, it won't make us very sad. We'll be very joyful, and we can transfer that joy or the excitement with her, and she can, limbless and living. We'll find another name.
Absolutely.